This is the scream. Or is it? The person depicted in the scream isn't the one screaming, it's his surroundings that are.
Welcome to the Booney Bears podcast, where we, Yuhin, Trevor, and Isaiah present to you The Scream.
The artist of this painting, Edvard Munch, was born on December 12, 1863, in Løten, Norway. His childhood wasn't the best, as he grew up in a rough environment. His mother, sister, and brother all died when he was relatively young. His father, who raised him up, suffered from depression. To add salt on the wound, a mental illness ran through the family, which he had inherited and suffered from.
Despite this, Edvard had talent in art, and this illness served as an inspiration to many of his expressionistic pieces. Art was an escape, a way to keep himself occupied. Therefore, he enrolled in an art school against his father's wishes. While studying at the Royal School of Art and Design, his unique style was developed under the influence of Hans Jaeger, who urged him to paint from his emotions and psychological state.
The painting in front of you was painted twice in 1883, but it was also painted in 1885 and 1910. That's because the Scream was painted 4 times in 2 different mediums, in oil and in pastel. The Scream is one of humanity's most iconic pieces, alongside the Mona Lisa. But before the Scream was painted, Edvard had also painted a series of paintings, like the Despair, representing the feelings leading up to the Scream. The Scream is now at the Museum of Oslo, where a large collection of Edvard's paintings are displayed.
The site of the painting is an overlook on the side of a road called Valhallveien, on a hill above Oslo, Norway. The hill is known as Ekeberg Hill, Ekeberg being just the neighborhood of Oslo, south of the city. The painting features a wave of bright red and yellow skies, with this spiraling flow of colors continuing into the lake and mountains in the midground. The main figure has also been distorted, and the curves and flows along with the rest of the composition.
However, it seems that the figures in the distant background walking on this road are unaffected by what the main character is experiencing. Unbeknownst to them, this character's face is contorted in shock and fear, and he has his hands covering his ears, in an attempt to block out sound. This painting may seem simple with its primary colors and wavy background. However, it conveys an even deeper meaning.
For this, we must dive deeper into this painting. Booney Bears listeners, to answer why. What had inspired Edvard Munch to paint such distorted features that express sheer terror and confusion?
Edvard had numerous problems with his mental health. He had diseases such as neurosis, bipolar disorder with psychosis, visual and auditory hallucinations, and etc. So yeah, his head's pretty messed up. And the fact that the environment he grew up in was in complete shambles absolutely didn't help.
So when Edvard Munch was on a stroll with his friends, he saw that the sky had suddenly turned blood red, and at that moment, he was completely overwhelmed. It was a panic attack from his feelings of anxiety and depression from this past, leading to a scream that he had solely heard. Get it? Solely heard because it was only him who heard this soul-shaking scream.
In his diary, an entry headed, Nice 22 January 1892, Munch wrote, "One evening, I was walking along the path. The city was on one side and the fjord below. I felt tired and ill. I stopped and looked out over the fjord. The sun was setting and the clouds were turning blood red. I sensed the scream passing through nature. It seemed like I heard the scream. I painted this picture, painted the clouds as actual blood. The colors shrieked. This became the scream."
This painting was a response to his feelings, and just like what Hans Jaeger had suggested, he was painting from the heart. The paint for the background was quickly applied and strongly implies this feeling of a dream-like, unreal, and unnatural state to this painting. This style carries on to the main character, implying that this phenomenon is only felt by the main character.
The 2 figures in the distance were his friends, who were unaffected by the scream of nature, symbolized by their rigid and sharp outlines, which contrast the rest of the painting. The main character of the painting is a representation of Edvard's sudden shock, an alienated but perfect representation of his emotions and panic at that moment when he felt the scream.
A conclusion to those who haven't been paying attention at all and are waiting for this podcast to end. The scream was never from the main character, but it has always been from nature. The day Edvard Munch was walking on a hill above Oslo, Norway, the sky turned red and Edvard had a panic attack. He felt the scream rip through nature. Because of this, he painted the scream. This one panic attack made him a painting recognized worldwide, with a price value of $120 million. Pretty lucky panic attack, right? Watch more Boonie Bear podcasts, or else.
Subscribe to the Boonie Bears podcast for free Robux. We know you want the Robux. We know you need that Robux. It's not a virus. Subscribe.